We're going to kick off the last session for the day. I'd like to welcome John Sullivan. John's from MYOB. He's going to be talking a subject today, guerrilla retransformation. John's the product delivery manager at MYOB SME, and he's in charge of the delivery teams that build, maintain, extend, and operate a bunch of online products. And he's leading the Agile retransformation. He's got a fair old history as an Agilist. He was involved in the lean startup business for Qantas Jetstar Group, where they rebuilt the online hotels and travel business for those companies. He also led an Agile transformation at Census Melbourne for the online directories, and in his previous role, he was also responsible for managing the professional services arms of ThoughtWorks in Melbourne. I got a chance to have dinner with this gentleman a few weeks back, and he's a fantastic bloke, really good history, and he really does have the manifesto in his heart. So, yeah, I'd like to welcome John on stage.
Right. I think he said I'm a nice bloke because I paid for that dinner. Is that right? Is that how it goes? Anyway, I'm going to apologise up front. I'm an Englishman who lives in Australia, so I swear a lot. You have to excuse me. But anyway, we'll hopefully not offend too many people. I don't want this slide to be a talk and a bang on about MYOB as an organisation, but just more about a framing contextually what you need to support sort of transforming your company. MYOB as a company is really intense from the top and the bottom of the company about being very successful about what it does. So the CEO, Tim Reed, whenever you're doing something, he is in the middle of it, basically trying to help you to achieve a great outcome for customers. And the reason I raise that is not really because of MYOB and saying MYOB is a great place, but it is a great place and we are hiring if you'd like to come and work for us. But it's not really for that purpose. It's more about just saying that when you want to do a transformation as an organisation, the thing you need is support from the top and the bottom of the company. And what happens in most organisations is they only get support from a certain point, up to a certain point. And when you sort of get to those outward boundaries of where the support stops, you end up doing this sort of double Salco twist with your process to try and give the information to the other groups. And what happens then is that you end up just then, because you're agile, you then basically start adapting and changing how you can do your stuff to feed information to other groups, and you end up sort of backing up your process back into yourself. And your process becomes sort of really warped and out of shape. So you are only really going to be as successful as really what those boundaries are of the support. And MYOB really has a lot of support from the top down. This presentation I gave in 2014 in Agile Australia, from a retransformation that we did in sort of the 2012 to the sort of midway through to the end of 2014. And then really it's a story, it starts in 2009. In 2009, MYOB in Melbourne, out of Burwood, in the business division, which is now we call SME, so Building Software for Small to Medium Enterprises, went through quite a public transformation to make itself a very agile organisation. So the team was about 120 developers altogether. And we went through from 2009, and we went out and we hired great consultants. We went out and hired companies like ThoughtWorks. We got people like Martin Fowler in. We got various people that were just luminaries to come in and teach us how to do Agile and do it very well. And we had, by about 2011, transformed ourselves into what was pretty much a good reference site for the rest of Melbourne and Sydney and other places in Australia for how you would implement Agile. So there would be people coming into the company, and they would basically they would walk the floor and have a look at the way that we ran things like retrospectives, how we ran inception phases, how we ran walls, the way that we managed our stories, the way developers worked. And people would take things from there, and they would go back to their company, and they would go, shit me, I want that stuff there in my company right now, because that's what Agile was really about. Like we were, you know, where if there was a Agile stamp you could stamp on a group and say you are CMM level or Agile level 155, we were it as a company. And we presented at things like Agile Australia. We did in 2010, we presented on continuous delivery. how to basically deliver software straight into production. So that was 2010, that's 5 years ago. We also did things in 2011 where we talked about building great teams that build software that meets what the customers want, building teams that hum. But when you look at that, so if you looked at it from the outside, you say, that's a great company. They have got Agile down pat, and they are an awesome organization. But if you look at what's happening in the market, in 2011, we released the flagship product, AccountWrite, a latest version of it, which had been released previously in 2009. It took us 2 years to rebuild something, although we were this Agile delivery organization. Right? And we spent 2 years rebuilding it, and all we did was really modified it from C++ and put it into C#. That's what we did. But it took us 2 years with about 100 people to do that. That's not very agile. Like, we did it in one great big bang release in 2011. And because we're agile, what we should be hearing is great euphoric people jumping up and down and saying, great thing you've delivered to us. And what we heard was that. That's basically what we heard. It wasn't bad, wasn't terrible, wasn't anything else, but for the effort we had put in, we hadn't served what our customers want, because they weren't banging out on the press saying it was a great thing. At the same time as 2011, really Xero hit its straps and the cloud market hit the accounting market. And if you read the press today, they'll tell you that cloud computing is the only thing in the accounting market. It's actually not. It's only about 14% of the overall market. So the cloud accounting market is 14% of the overall market. So when you hear people fighting in the industry about they're winning the game of accounting, they're fighting over this 14%. So they're losing 86%, if my mathematics are correct, 86% of the market, which isn't actually based on cloud. But that did, when that cloud hit it and Xero entered the market and became quite prominent, that actually forced us to rethink about what we were doing. And we then hurriedly in 2011 rebuilt AccountWrite again and split the front end of the desktop. From the back end, we put the back end services and we put them all in Azure. It was the first major implementation of Azure. It is today the 4th biggest implementation of any service running in Azure, behind things like Office 365, Skype. So when Azure goes down, and it has twice, basically we are on the board from Microsoft being restored. Like we're that important as the size of a company. But we rebuilt it in 2012. Again, it took us another year to split the front end and the back end. Put it back in market, and again we heard nothing again. But we'd spent, by this time we had 130 people working in it, so it was a bigger team, massive amount of effort, but not a great return for the customer. And NYB is a company that is driven to try and make our business customers' life easier. And we weren't doing that because they weren't jumping up and down and saying this is a great product. So what do you do when you do that? So, like I said to you before, the context is that we're an intense organization. Everybody looked at it and said, man, we've transformed ourselves to what everyone else would say if you want to be a great delivery team. This is what you'd do. You'd be agile. We had transformed ourselves into that, but it isn't good enough. It's not working. We are delivering software, spending an enormous amount of effort trying to put stuff into production. When we get it into production, the customers aren't loving it. They're not hating it, but they're not loving it and they're not flocking it. So what's the point of doing this? We need to do something different. And this is a story about what we did. So you've heard this a lot, actually. It's quite all the way through the theme of this conference. The first thing we noticed as a leadership group was that the thing that we had focused on as a company was to be a great agile shop. The thing that success for us was a fantastic implementation of agile. Straight walls with lines, great columns, great inception phases. We did everything perfectly. And what we said when we were great, and when we read success, the metric of success was that it was a brilliant process. Well, I hate to tell everyone, but that is not what you should try and do. Agile is not your destination when you're trying to transform. As everyone else has been saying in here, Agile is a philosophy, it's a thought process. It's you as a person coming into work today and saying, yesterday was not as good as I can make it today, so I'm going to make that bloody thing better. So it's a mindset, it's a philosophy. And you have to find a different thing to transform yourself to that makes differences to the company, and it sure as hell is not being great at Agile. There's not a company out here I know, maybe an Agile consultancy firm, but Most companies, the actual management of it, don't give an absolute rat's ass whether you do agile, fragile, oompa loompa, or whatever process you bloody well want. It doesn't matter. They want the business success. So the first thing we noticed was we had set ourselves up for failure because we were striving to be brilliant at agile. And we were brilliant at agile, but it just didn't give us any major successes. So we changed the focus in the team to say the thing we want to do is deliver great outcomes to our customer. And everyone in the team should strive to achieve that. And that changed quite a lot of dynamics in the actual group itself. What we found is a lot of the senior leaders in the group, out of that 120, 130 people, signed themselves out of the company. Because the thing they saw as success in their career was they were great at agile, because in 2012, being agile and being great at it was a good ticket to the market, to earn money in the market. So people started self-selecting themselves out. And we took those opportunities to rehire some of those leaders and find people that were delivery experts. People that just concentrated on building great software. They might know something about Agile, but Agile didn't matter as stuff to me and the team. Like, we don't. It just really didn't. And that changed the dynamic and the focus. We didn't care whether or not. So when you focus on doing Agile, what happens with it is you end up installing a waterfall process because you'll gate it. You say, now we do our inception. And once we've got this, this group understanding of everything that we're doing, that's great. Then we can move on and then we can build it. And then you'll have these columns in your wall, which will be backlog, in analysis, ready for dev, dev, ready for test, test. That's waterfall. So if you're striving for those walls, you're striving for a waterfall process. What you need is to be done, doing, done. 3 columns. That's Agile. I'm ready to do something. Pick it up, do it, done. Put it in production. That is what Agile is. It is not all of the things that people strive to achieve, and we had basically missed a boat trying to do that. So the second thing we've done as an organisation from 2009 to about 2012 is we'd followed a beautiful, well-trodden path of finding the great luminary consultants to come in, and they would walk the floor and they would basically sprinkle Agile fairy dust everywhere, and everyone would be infected with that fairy dust, and they would come skipping to it, and they would feel, great, I'm Agile, it's fantastic. But it doesn't work that way. People don't get infected, they don't see that as an infectious environment, they feel infected by it. And they rebel. And what they do is they basically turn up and they go, how the hell can I get out of this bit of this bloody process and just make sure that everybody thinks I'm following what I should be doing? Right, yeah, yesterday I sort of did some work, it was good. Today I'll do some more stuff, and then, yeah, I haven't got any problems really. All right, great, stand up, off we go. They just won't do it properly. But we had basically used consultants at the top to push from the very top down a culture of Agile into the team. You cannot, I can't remember what presentation I've been in, we've heard this a few times, you cannot push culture into a company. Right? You basically grow culture from the bottom of your company up into it. It's the people on the floor, the people, so for us, when you cut them, they bleed purple. They are the people that grow your culture in your company. People that bleed orange, in Orion Health's case. Blue if you're 0. That's what you want. You want people that own it. Not consultants coming in and pushing things in, walking the floor as Agile coaches. It doesn't work. So we basically almost sacked every single coach that was on the floor, got rid of all of them, and basically just hired people into the teams to work with people that could understand the problems that people were facing, and then could work out ways of helping them deliver better. And out of that, changed the culture within inside the company, because we owned it. Yeah. When you get that sort of things, you don't end up with what you have before, which is a lips and ceremony style, or a words and ceremony style of transformation. We use all the Agile words, got all the ceremonies. Are you Agile? No, we're waterfall. But when you change it from within the culture of the team, and you grow it from inside your team, what you get is you get process which meets its purpose. And it will probably do a lot of the Agile things, because they're smart things. But you only use them in a form that makes sense for the purpose that you're trying to deliver, that you're trying to do as a company. So the next thing we did is, so now what we've got is we've changed our focus to try and start delivering good software that customers want. We started to grow this culture from the inside of the company and start to rechange who we are inside this delivery team. And that's only working so far. You've actually got one great tool for you in software, and that is that the average retention rate of people in IT is normally around about 2 years. Especially developers, it's about a 2-year, 2.5-year cycle. So you get this great opportunity to keep hiring more people through your company. But most people aren't specific about the way they hire, and nor will we. We had a great process, 5 steps, but if you ask someone what they want, whether that was a great person, they'd have an opinion as to whether someone was a great person. And someone's opinion on what was great was different from what someone else's opinion was. And I was walking the floor at one point on the team, and I just remember one of the lead architects leaning over a desk at someone else going, "Hey, just done this code review, and this code here is the best bloody algorithm I've ever seen, man. It's awesome. It's in 3 lines, it's fantastic, and it's fast. We gotta hire this guy now." And I'm walking around going, "Wow, that sounds pretty cool. I better go have a look at that code." So I've got the guy to file the code up. He's a lead architect, does most of the reviews. I went, "Right, what's great about it?" He goes, "Oh, look at the algorithm that does all this thing about the game, and it's fantastic." I went, "Pull up the solution, show me the object hierarchy or the class hierarchy." I went, "Bloody thing doesn't make any sense, man. Like, it's got a game and a person person knows something about the game, and it's got a game quality about it. Like, and it doesn't have any tests. Like, this is shit. Like, and you're going to hire him?" So I walk away and then go up to the guys and go, "Hey, look, I've just done this thing with John, blah, 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 blah." And everyone goes, "Man, we're hiring the wrong people, aren't we?" We're going, "Yeah, we are. We're hiring the wrong damn people." So I'll talk through what we did with the development side of things, but we did this every function in the team. We got everyone in the room and we basically said, write down the attributes of the person that you want to work with you in your teams. Not what the qualities and attributes you have today, but who you want us to be in the future. And we wrote all those things down, and we battled over all of these things. I swear it's such a really subjective thing, but we battled over writing down all of these attributes and qualities of individuals down and going, okay, if someone's, we want someone who's that works in a team, what's the quality? Like, what's the attribute of that person that means that they're a great team player? You can't put down great team player. That just won't work. Like, great, yes, great team player. Person comes in, "Hello, can I put my headphones on?" And that's all you'll get out of it. You won't be able to test someone correctly. So we did that. And in that, it was quite funny. In the development side of things, we had like a room of people who were sort of semi-new to the company and some of the new leaders in there, and some of the people that had been there a longer time. And the 3 architects that had been there the longer time went, "Based on those attributes, you wouldn't hire Bill Gates." I remember, "No, I bloody well wouldn't. What do I want Bill Gates writing code for accounting software for? Like, seriously, are you kidding me?" And they went, "Yeah, and based on those attributes, you wouldn't hire me." And I went, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard anyone say to their boss." Like, seriously. Like, fail, fire that man. Like, sorry, you are not smart enough, basically, to... No, it didn't. Nothing like that happened. But I sort of went, really? Right, okay. But what I learned out of that one statement from that guy, same guy, John, at the time, is I learned one thing, which is when you're interviewing people, find people with the qualities and the attributes that you aspire to have in your team. Always make sure there is someone with those attributes in an interview stage. And if you ask someone a question that asks for their opinion on something, only ask someone who has the qualities and the attributes that you aspire to have to give you an opinion. If the person has no attributes that you want or doesn't have all of them, don't ask them their opinion. Because everyone, when they basically look at someone and say, "This person's great," they're looking at them as if they're looking in a mirror about themselves. And you don't want those qualities and those attributes. Right? So I learned one thing out of that guy saying, "You wouldn't hire me." I'm going, "No, I don't want you basically making any decisions other than a factual point as to whether they wrote tests. But if I'm going to tell you they're a great team player, I don't want you as part of to make that sort of, answer that kind of thing at all." So through all the people that are in there, we basically, each of those roles, we wrote down each of the steps. We rewrote all of the hiring process. So each of the hiring processes are about 5 different steps. And at each of them, we decided what attributes we were after and what we were going to try and get out of each step of the interview. What we were going to try and get people to understand who we were and where we aspired to be and the journey we were going on so that people could be part of it. So when they came in, that we have no one coming into the company going, "Do you know what, this isn't quite what I signed up for. We had everything through each of the steps going through. We basically tested people for teams. Like when you're building people to deliver software, you need to make sure they can work in teams. You're not about building individuals, you're about building teams. And I swear, like I've been involved in building software for, I think it's about 30 years now. I may not look like it, but I have been doing it for about 30 years. You're supposed to all nod, right? But literally, I've been doing it for 30 years. And I tell you this, give me a bunch of thickies that can work together really well as developers, and I'll outperform any group of superstar individuals. You do not need superstars, a group of superstars. You need a group of people who can work together. So all the interview processes we have are about finding out how people work with inside their teams. So the first interview is a telephone interview, then it's a code review. They come in with as a developer, and we basically review their code in front of them next to two people in the teams. And then when they do that and we go through the code, we then say, well, the next stage now is like just block out an afternoon and come in for an afternoon. So they sit in there, we do a bit of a code review, go through their code, they talk to us about why they built the code the way they built it. We then basically throw a curveball at them and get them to change the design of the system in front of someone and pair with someone to change. And then what we do is we take that developer and we then move them over to another team and we say, who's picking up a card? I'm just about to pick up a card. Okay, you sit with this person if you can and actually work with this developer and you help him develop this as an interview process. And what you find out in those things, you find out pretty bloody quick whether they're working your team or not. And you'll also work out whether they like working in your company, because interview processes are not a one-way street. Right? Not everybody wants to work at MIB. Not everybody wants to work at MIB. They don't. Not everybody wants to work at your company either. So you have to find that out. So we went through all of this process and we rewrote the whole thing. And what happened out of it, that massively fueled a change within inside the group. And we started getting the right people and the right outcomes by just doing this one step in here. This is, seriously, for transformations, that's your fuel. Get your hiring process correct. People will tell you it's consultants and it's everything else. Sorry, consultancy companies. It is not. It's your hiring process. Love consultancy firms. I buy consultancy firms. I buy them dinner. That's how much I love them. Anyway, so I'm so glad you didn't introduce me the way you said you were going to introduce me. There's a few swear words, and that was it. This guy you shouldn't listen to. He's a knob. Get round. That's basically what he was going to say. All right, so we've got this thing going now. We started getting all the right people into the team, we were sort of halfway around, and we're moving along, and we're moving into a much better place. But it's kind of still slow. And I'm super impatient. I really am. I'll make one other point as well. Like in here, I've probably said the word I about 15 times in here, as if I'm this great leader of a people, and because of me, everything happened. If you're going to change a company, it's not about people like me. My job as a leader is to be a bullshit plow. Just plow through bullshit and just push it aside so that really smart, intelligent people in teams can do the right thing. And then I can take credit for it. And then when I'm taking credit for it, I say, these guys over here did it. And the reason that's important to do that is most people on the floor do not get an opportunity in most large companies to stand with the executives and actually take praise. So my job is to get the team to work really well so that I can stand with an executive group and go, don't thank me, you've got to go and thank Candice, or you've got to thank Keith or George or Bert or Harry. It's not me, I just did nothing. That's what my job is. It's just a clear pathways to get smart people. So I apologize for using I, but that's basically what a leadership role is. It's empowering your team, making sure you get the power of people rather than the power of an individual, because I'm not smart enough, basically, to do all this on my own. I'm really not. And I would doubt there's anyone in this room or in any of the rooms up here who is. It's all about teams. But I am impatient. I'm exceptionally impatient. I am relentless about trying to make change in companies. That's just basically the thing that gets me up every morning. I wake up every morning. I think that's why I would classify myself as an agilist. Is I wake up every morning and I want something to be better. And I am frustrated, enormously frustrated when I go to bed and I haven't achieved some change, some mark, some improvement. But we are here now, just at this point in time in the story, basically just hiring people and getting better people into the company. And it's making a change and it's moving, but it's not fast enough. And we were starting a new product, looking at building a new product, and we did a 4-week inception phase where we're just rethinking this whole product called Cashbook, which is the product we're taking to market. And we know that we needed a team. Roughly, we have teams of about 12 size of people, developers, testers, everything else in the team. It's about 12 people. And we know that we didn't have enough people on the floor, basically, that we could just push into this new product. So we put half of the team through the inception that were consultants or contractors, a mixture of people that we just individuals that we knew. But I actually knew every single one of the people that came into that team for a particular reason, which I'll tell you in a minute. But we went through the inception phase, got out of it in 4 weeks, and everybody what I wanted people to go away on Friday knowing what they wanted to build and doing the things they normally do and come back in on Monday, and I wanted people to say, do you know what? There are no testers on this team. Developers build all the functional tests. There is no phase at the end of this delivery that is the testing phase. There is no column in our walls that has testing on it. It is about shifting testing left-hand side on the wall. And testing is a thing when you pick up a card and you look at a card, it is what are we going to do as a group of individuals to make this card go straight into bloody production. That is what we wanted to do. And I wanted that change from where we were before to happen on a Monday morning, because before we had some of the walls, we had all of the columns and everything else in some of the teams. But you need to make a change of that. So we were at the time predominantly a .NET environment. So people built code in .NET and C#. There was some Java and some other things in the area I was in, but it was mainly .NET. So on Monday morning, everyone walks in and there's a nice area in the room that's all cleared up for this new team to sit there, and I want this product in beta in 3 months. Accounting software takes about 6 months to a year to build something. We were aggressive. We wanted it in 3 months to be out in beta in front of customers. So they walk into their room, and on their desk are these beautiful shiny Macs. But I'm a .NET developer. Not anymore, you're not. Not anymore, you're not. Today, we're going to build Cashbook in Ruby on Rails. Hooray! Right, best I leave you lot alone for a minute. I'll come back in 3 months when it's done. No, it wasn't quite like that, but literally just we changed it. Almost was. But seriously, what we did is we literally just moved everyone and said, the system is going to be built in Ruby on Rails, and here's a Mac. Work on a Mac. I don't know how a Mac works. How do I put Visual Studio? Do I put Parallels on? Do I put... No, you are not infecting this lovely, beautiful machine. Seriously, man. Like, virtual machines with Windows on it, that's like basically taking a really good machine and making it twice as crap. Like, it's terrible. Don't do that, man. No, here is your editor. It's called Sublime Text. Sublime Text? How do I right-click and start my project? It's called the directory structure. So anyway, so you're in there, and there's team. So the reason for doing it is that the people that we'd hired as consultants and contractors, who I knew, were all Ruby on Rails developers. And what happens when you take away people's support structure like that is that they go, do you know what? I actually need to ask for help to do something. So the first thing you do is say, right, developers, pair with these guys here. And when you pair, you go, right, what's the first thing we do? Well, let's sit together. Oh, look, I've got pairing happening. Machine up, okay, so what's the first thing we write? Right-click, start a test. Oh, I've got TDD in the team. And we built code properly. Right, who's going to test it? Actually, this person that came in that was a tester, it's not a tester, it's a developer. There are no testers here. I'm a tester. No, you're not, you're a developer now. We have no testers on Cashbook. We have absolutely no testers whatsoever. Everyone develops code. There is only value when you deliver software in code. So everyone focuses on code. And we delivered that system in 3 months. It was really bumpy for about the first 2 weeks, I can tell you. It's like, seriously. But yeah, anyway, like, I can't live without Visual Studio and the 4,000 irrelevant files that it creates for me when I go right-click Start Project. Obviously, no one uses Visual Studio here. That's a good joke. That is seriously a good joke, guys. Now, Visual Studio, by the way, does create a redundant number of bloody files of which you go, what do I actually need half of this stuff for? And you don't. You just delete half of it. So this thing called teleportation change is all about saying you can use technology to enforce a change in behavior in a group. Because you take away the support structures. What happens with people is when you're trying to give them a new process, is that they will fall back on the things that are security, and it's more unlikely it's something like their language. They'll just start defaulting to the way they test, the way they build. And you can change that by dynamically moving it very quickly into a different language, and then giving people the right support structures from consultants and contractors to help them through that journey. And that changes them dramatically, very quickly. And what we've done subsequent to that is we have moved most of those people within that team, and we keep moving them into other teams. And that team today, I looked at it 2 weeks ago, it is now a team of 6 people. So we split deployment and release, the 2 processes. These guys deploy 20 times a week. We release 3 times a week. We could release 20 times a week. And the only way we've got that is there is no testing phases. It is literally as quick as, I need to do this, I'm doing it, I've done it. And you can almost throw the card away when it's done. The only reason you need it is so you've got an idea of what you're going to group together to release. It has business value. That's the only reason you have it. But that change like that is the only way that we've got that to move very quickly. So this is... So the other thing that's happened, like, we've moved ourselves at this point into a company that basically is shipping code pretty quickly, and we do. A lot of the areas that we ship multiple times a week. Sometimes it's 1 in some products, and other times it's 20. But we ship a lot of things. We release, probably in the SME area, we probably release around about 10 times a week into production in all the systems that we look after. But you cannot, as a company, run a traditional production support and operations group with a team that is that dynamic. Because production operations and support teams, how they set themselves up is they basically want structure and order, and they want to know what happens so they can support it, which is fair enough. They want to know how they can support the products that you are shipping into production. So how do you set up a structure that allows you to rapidly push things into production, but allows people to support it? So we set up a team which we called production operations. And we had a permanent staff in there, and we had a rotation staff in the same team, sat with a development team. The permanent staff was the production operations manager, capacity planning and service management, incident management, and second-level support for infrastructure. And so those teams looked after the infrastructure. Every time we do a release, we rotate a developer into the production operations team, and they become the second and third level support for the product they've just released. There's no documentation handover, there is no idle cabbing process or anything else which gets in the way of releasing things fast. And what happens with these developers when they move into that team, they do one thing. When there are an incident, they help restore the service, so they restore the incident. Then they will look to see if there is a way that they can put a permanent fix in so that that problem never occurs again, if it would ever occur again. It might just be because of something else that's caused the problem. But they basically work in that way. When they're not working on incidents, there's a backlog of things that they need to do to make the systems operate better in production, and they make the system work better in production. So we're continually tuning the application to make it work in production. What happens at that dynamic is that you don't need any handovers. The handovers become people. The knowledge is actually in people anyway, so everyone will tell you that you write all these documents about what you're doing and everything else. They're all bullshit because they're not right. And as soon as something happens in production, most people are like going, oh, I don't really understand the system. I've read the documentation and it says this is the proxy and blah, 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 when it's not even there. They don't know, like it never works properly. So you're better off actually moving someone in there with all the knowledge of what's gone on. And the reason to move someone on a release is that most things go wrong when you've just released. Things don't just up and break. I was working fine. We didn't do anything. Nothing happened. It does. Like when things changed, it may not be that change. It might have a flow-on effect somewhere else, but that change probably promoted that problem. So we rotate people in through that. The other thing that happens is when you rotate the developers out and you put them back in the development team, the first thing they do is they go, I ain't building any systems like the last one I've tried to bloody fix. Because I'll be back there having to bloody well fix this damn thing. So people learn how to build production-style environments by going through that whole rotation system. There. But that's basically how you build, in my opinion, how you build a way of building a production operations team that can work in a fast-paced world, which is really what the internet or the cloud is all about today. You strive to do things and deliver very quickly, but what happens is there's a theory of constraints, like you fix one thing and something else is reliant on it, it breaks the things that are reliant on it. So you can want as an organization to deliver things very quickly in production and do that and think it's a great thing, but all the other surrounding systems need to change as well. Most people don't change those systems. And you end up, like I said before, you do this double Salco twist with the process. Where you go, we're ready, we could ship it, but actually what we'll do is we'll just do a cab meeting on Thursday, because it's always a Thursday meeting for the cab, and we can release on the Friday. And you do that, so you bend the process around. The other thing, so remember the one thing I said before, which was that MYB is a hugely intense organization where everyone is willing and wants you to be successful. And with that comes, especially if you're an organization that is owned by a private equity company like Bain, which is what MYB are, is that they want information. Like, man, the most frightening thing I think I've ever done in my life, I've presented to people like Alan Joyce of Qantas, Bruce Buchanan of Jetstar, head of Telstra, David Thodey, actually the guy before him, this American-Mexican guy, I can't remember what his name is now, I've presented to him. Like, they're scary dudes. Bain Capital, they are scary dudes. You give them a 150-page slide deck, they'll read every damn thing that's in that slide deck before they turn up. And then they'll look at page 40 and they'll go, do you know what, you actually state this here, but on page 165, that doesn't correlate to that thing there. You go, how the hell do you do it? They are scary dudes to present to. But the problem with doing that is that these companies, when they're putting money into the company, and they haven't, as Bain, they have not split MYOB up. They have invested money in it to make it successful. That's why MYOB will always be successful, is everyone's striving to make the company better. But with that, they want to know where their pound of flesh is going. They want to know where it is. But when we started this in 2000, this sort of transformation in 2012, one of the first things we made a decision on was we cannot be doing what we're doing today, which is I'm spending 3 days a week with my leadership in a room, either getting stuff together or presenting it to an executive board. That gives me 2 days to work with the team, to work out what things I need to get out of the way to make the teams work properly. And the same for my leadership team. Can't do that, so we have to change the way that we report. And it was lucky at the time that we actually went over a new three-year strategy where we rolled all of the metrics of the company up into 4 metrics. The whole company ran off 4, which was engagement score. How happy are people that are working in the company and committed to the purpose of what the company is trying to achieve? Do they feel invigorated about coming into the company? When you have that, they build products that customers like because they're committed to it. So we started moving in and shipping in customers and people on a regular basis, interviewing them, but we interviewed them in front of the team. We had accountants in and business owners, we videoed them and everything else, so we connected our delivery teams to it, but we changed our focus from being into 4 metrics. 1, engagement, so you build the right product. Secondly, NPS rating of our products, so it drives us, man. Like, NPS has to go up to the right-hand side. How many people buy our online products in comparison to our competitors? And the last one is, how much do we sell, money-wise? Not how much profit do we make. Don't care about profit. Profit will take care of itself by selling the right thing. And then we drive those 4 metrics as a company, and we drive them into things that we call key plays. And those key plays are a set of assertions that if we do certain things, these are the measures or the uptick that we'll get in either engagement score or an NPS or in number of people that buy products and the like. And we drive all those key plays through the company. And in BD, which is the time, which is now the group's now called SME Group, we had 9 of these key plays, and we got the whole of a year's worth of roadmap, or I think at this time it was about 8 months worth of roadmap, about $12 million worth of development effort going on. And we put all of the key plays up on the left-hand side, and then we put the epics next to them of the things that were going to help deliver these KRAs against the quarters. And then we broke them down to make them more finite things on the right-hand side, which were the actual feature sets which would go into the next set of iterations, or the next sprints. And then each of the walls that the teams had would then come and pull stuff off of this wall. Everything was up and visible on there. When the executives wanted a meeting, which happened every week, of talking about how we were progressing, we actually did it in front of the wall. When people wanted to know how our feature was going and how this thing, how quick it was to market, we would just walk them over to the development team and go, Yossi, can you talk to Tim Reed, the CEO of the company, Yossi, junior developer? Could you go and talk to Tim about how this is going? Could you show him it working, please? Right, great. Got an idea where it's going? Yeah, is that what you want? No, I actually think, John, when we talk to the supplier, blah, 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 I go, right, now I'm getting real information from what the executive and what we want as a company in the team. We got people in from the market and we moved them in. So people that use our software, we got them in every month and they did a walkthrough of a new feature, and they played with it, and we videoed them, and we basically let them say whether it was good or bad. All the bad feedback, we fixed it and then reshipped it. So we changed everything. All of the risks and issues were up on the wall. The hiring process was up on the wall, so every person that was going through a hiring process was on the wall. All reporting basically got pushed out of the team, which is why I'm saying it's cadence reporting rather than governance. Most companies want governance. These are the reports that you will generate at this point in time in order for me to decide whether you're doing the right thing. By the time you've generated all that information, it's wrong because you've moved. And most people, to be honest with you, who are having to present the information that you do from a governance perspective, change actually what they put into those reports because they sure as hell don't want to be the person giving bad news to a scary executive board like Bain. So they were changing it. So in the way we said, everything that comes out of the team is going to be put up visual. Good stuff, bad stuff, don't care, please come up here. And Bain come in, and literally the executive from Bain, when he flew in from the US, and they said, how's the MYB going? They walked him up to the wall, and we walked him all the way through the program of work. And this is a guy in sort of a $10,000 suit, but literally we walked him through the whole thing. And we didn't have to generate any more reports. Everything was up on the wall. They were just artifacts that we used to generate outcomes for the team. And then the last thing you need when you're doing this stuff is you still need feedback from executives into the team. So we set in a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Thursday meeting at 8:30 every week, where we basically said, here's a list of really bad name, but known unknowns. Terrible name, but like we know about this, but we have no idea what it really means, but we need some advice and guidance from you. And we kept an electronic list of this and a representation of it on the wall. And basically said, on every sort of Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, we will be there, and basically we're going to go top down of all the orders of things, and we need answers on these things here. And we'll talk you through all the things, and then we'll get feedback from you. So we kept the cadence of decision-making really quick. And we made all the decisions, instead of being as part of the presentation of a 150 slide board pack, it was actually done basically every half an hour. And then we pretty much moved everything to about 3 days worth of reporting when you were standing at walls in a month from what it was before that, which was basically 3 in a week. So we massively shifted it. So my recommendation to people is you generate so much information. If you can put it up visibly on the wall, and you can get your executives and groups to come down and talk to the wall, you don't have to do reporting anymore. And that's actually the only true thing that makes sense, what's on the wall, because it's actually what's going on. Most board packs that you'll put out there are just a load of lies. Like they're how people want the story to be represented, because they really, in the majority of cases, don't want their ass kicked. Right? So people lie about things, and then people, I just don't understand what's going on in the team. And as soon as that happens from an executive, they want more reporting. And the more things don't go right, they want more reporting. And all of a sudden, your 3 days become 5 days, and in the end, they're still not happy, and then they fire you. So you're much better off getting the information coming out of the team. It's a true representation of it, and it takes absolutely no workload. And that was it. They were the things that we changed. Like nothing that I've talked about there is Agile, really. Like if it's not a book representation of Agile, it really isn't. But the important thing out of this is, in that sort of 18-month journey of doing all of this sort of stuff there, from sort of 2012 to sort of the end of towards the end of 2014, like we changed from being a company that delivered software, which everybody went, that's what we heard from the market, to where we are today, which is a company that wins innovation awards, which we just won in Australia. We won awards for mobile applications that we deliver. We have systems that we deploy. We deploy multiple things into production. And we have good products. The team is so much better than it was before. And it got there by setting its targets and its goals correctly, which was not to become brilliant applicants of a process or a methodology. They were brilliant at delivering and still are brilliant about releasing software. They are passionate about what they do. They seek out problems and they solve problems. Right? If you try and regiment and put a process in, what you'll end up doing is just becoming much better at that. And you will get some gains in your company because you're making some change and thinking about things, but you won't get a lasting change. You won't make a material change. You have to do something, and it is not the implementation of an Agile process. So I did this thing, when I said I've presented this before, I presented it at Agile Australia in 2014 in Melbourne, and I did another one in the end of 2014 in Sydney. And I finished it with exactly the same thing. And some people here have sort of stolen my thunder, but I kind of implore, like kind of pleading with you as an audience in there. We have as I'm hugely passionate about Agile. When Kent Beck wrote his book, XP Explained in the year 2000, I bought a copy, I read it. I was working for a process company in Australia called Object Consulting at the time, and I read this book, and they had their own process, which is an iterative incremental process. And I read this book, and I went, man, I am so over thinking I can think through a problem before I even write a line of code. I've got to get writing code quick, and I've got to connect to the person that wants it, not through some bloody BA or some proxy business guy or woman that gives me the information, because it's not doing me any favors, and I'm feeling unfulfilled that I'm not actually delivering it, and not delivering software and putting great things into production is the norm in this industry. And that's what I felt in 2002, and that's what Kent Beck's book did for me. And at that point then, when I've had enough of this company, and I then started my journey about going through ThoughtWorks and helping to build ThoughtWorks in the Australian region, and then moving my way through transforming companies like Census and Jetstar. I'm hugely passionate about it. But my plea is to you guys is that we are institutionalizing Agile. It's actually what's happening, right? Agile is about making things better. It's a mindset. Come in today, make it better than yesterday. By definition, if you are changing it that amount, it cannot be followed and it cannot be documented, because it's always changing. By the time you've documented it, it's better. And if you follow a rudimentary implementation of Agile, all you'll get is a waterfall process that's just done on smaller iterations, and you will be in a no better place. So I beg you, do not kill Agile, because it is being done in the industry as it stands at the moment by the way it's being applied by things like certifications and stuff like that. It's bullshit. It's a mindset. Build good software. Deliver value to your customers. Come in every day and try and make it better. Right? That's what being a delivery, that's what software is about. It's about invention. It's a massively creative industry. And if we fuck up the way that we're fucking up at the moment, we'll get outsourced. Because they can get that in another country. They can get just as many fuck-ups in another country at half the price. Do not let your kids not have a choice to come into a great industry like this. I have worked in many bits of continents in the world. I've worked in the US, I've worked in multiple countries in Europe, I've worked in Asia, I've worked in Australia, I reside in Australia, I work in New Zealand. I have managed to do what most armed forces sort of use as their tagline for why you should go and work in the armed forces. And guess what? I haven't had my ass shot off. It's been a safe environment. I've worked with great people. I've solved great problems. Do not let this industry, by standardizing things like Agile, do not let this industry die. Thank you.
I was waiting for more swear words, and you got them in at the end, mate. So it's just beautiful, beautiful. Has anyone got any questions that they'd like to ask John? We'll bring a microphone down so everyone can hear. Oh.
Na, 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 na.
Trying to get more swear words.
Hello,
Before she takes it away.
Oh, pick me.
Yeah. I was a lot of it resonated, but I was kind of curious about the decision to move to Rails from, say, Sharp. There was a lot of stuff about delivery and sort of team ownership and collaboration, but the decision to just pick a new, stack and introduce it to the team and say, work with this without the collaboration seemed curious. I'm just wondering where that came from.
Yeah, so, no one's perfect. No one's perfect, let's be honest about it. So sometimes things like striving to be better at things and to want improvement and seeing problems and being an energetic person is my undoing at times, right? That decision to move to Rails was my decision. And I just thought there is no way I'm going to get a change as quick as I want it and as quick as I think I can get it unless I do something as pure obnoxious as that kind of move.
So you were just trying to be disruptive then?
Totally. It succeeded. It succeeded. And we still use Rails today, and we still change technology stacks, and we use it as ways of becoming better. I think someone in here said that you don't need to use technology for purpose or something. I reckon whoever said that I think is wrong. Seriously, technology it has purpose, and at times you want to use a different technology to solve a different problem, and I'm okay with that. Right? In this case was just change something so that I get people working better than they were working before. And at the end of it, once they went past this whole horrible sort of flaily computer hand, hissy fit, oh my God, I can't work like this sort of thing, went past that stage and then realized that right-click doesn't work in Sublime Text. That basically when they got past that and they started working, they actually now love what they were working on. And it's one of those things inherent, like we're inventors. Delivery people are inventors, they're creators. Right? And so if you give them something else to learn, and to do that, they have to learn. They have to, seek things out, seek information out. And to do that, chucking another language at someone is horrible at the start, but they embrace it pretty quickly, because that's basically what got them there in the first place.
I love the reasoning and good choice of language.
Yeah.
Hi. You've kind of answered the question already with the response to that first question. So we're on a similar journey where we're moving technology stacks from Microsoft to Node.js.
Oh, yeah.
So we love Microsoft, but we're just finding that Node is it's a more versatile language that allows us to move to as continuous delivery. And some of our developers have just thrown their hands up in the air. I'm a Microsoft developer, I'm not doing this.
Sure.
How did you deal with that in your scenario with Rails?
Well, I was lucky that no one in that team abandoned the team, but I've done something similar at a different company. And the answer to that is that, in Melbourne I present, in Australia I present quite a bit, and I've got this tagline of basically saying, the last time I presented someone said, wow, he actually went through a whole presentation without saying he didn't fire someone. And I have so far got away with that, but maybe not anymore. The answer to it is that that it's not actually firing. People have different journeys and different expectations of what they want out of their careers. And what you do as a leader is you basically work through what people's careers are, what their aspirations and goals are. And there is a logical point, virtually in everyone's career, I think, in IT, where what you need and what you want from a company is different to what the company needs. And you just need to be an adult about that. Right? So it's not about firing people, which is the normal tag. I just fire them. It's not really like that. But it's about coming to this determination that now what you aspire to do in your career, like you're having to do most of that now at home on your own. And the company is no longer the vehicle for you to grow yourself. And when you change languages, you're doing it for a reason. And that may move people away from what their career trajectories are. And you just need to have an adult conversation about that whole thing. Your careers are not defined by the boundaries of the organization in which you work. Talent, retention is what people use at the moment as terms, isn't actually about keeping George or Bert or Sylvia or Georgina in the company. It's about retaining skills. Because by retaining individual people, you're creating glass ceilings in organizations. So it's about getting career paths for people, and at some point things deviate between what you want and what the company needs. And you need to have a good conversation about that, and then you need to help those people get great jobs for themselves, and they'll thank you. At the point where we are in MYB now, the majority of the team from 2012 to today is almost probably around about 60% new team, all up. None of those people have been fired. Every single one of those people that has left the company, I still see in the Melbourne market, and I still have coffees with, and quite a lot of them I still mentor. Because I've had that frank, decent conversation with people about what you need ain't what we need. Let's just man up, or woman up, and get on it. So, but that's basically how you deal with it. Yeah? But seriously, people to say I will not change technology stack, you're in the wrong career. No's a good choice, by the way.
Any more questions?
Chris.
How do you measure engagement?
Oh, well, I was here for Bradley's presentation from Xero, sitting in the front with an MYOB t-shirt. He must have loved it. But anyway, yeah, whoops, we're in the same position as Xero. So we do engagements, we actually do them twice a year, not once a year. We do them twice. But inside the teams themselves, we actually use a metric inside the teams where every iteration we have metrics which we want to move for engagement in each of the teams. And we measure those things inside the team. We do that at every iteration. And we use the values and whether something's moving to the right or to the left, like being positive or negative move. And we use that as points and to then raise in the retros about, like, guys, you said that, you know, a shorter manual testing cycle on here is something that really pisses you off as a team. Like, why have you slid from 5.4 to 3.2 in this iteration? And then we use that as a means to test. So we sort of do the formal engagement as a company one, but in the teams themselves, we actually, every iteration, drive in and ask people, what do you think engagement looks like to you as a team? What do you aspire to be? And we measure that. So I don't have we are very much like Xero in some respects in some of the bigger things, but we still try and do things uniquely to the teams themselves. Yeah, but measuring it at the end of the year, I totally agree with Bradley. You know, it's a lag indicator. How was last year? It was shit. Okay, thanks. We'll try better next year. We'll find out at the end of next year whether we did or not. That's really bad.
I just
Sorry, does that answer your question, by the way? Cool.
Totally agree with your criticism of implementing empty rituals. But my question then is, you're not going to say, for example, you've got all these rituals that you use for Agile. If you understand the essence, if the essence of the rituals explain to you the reason for doing it, that's not an empty ritual, because eventually you can say, look, I can discard this aspect of the ritual because I don't need this part of the process. So you end up adapting it yourself, which is the process of shihari, of going through and changing it. You're not talking about rejecting all those Agile processes. You're saying implement the philosophy and adopt the processes as required. The philosophy has to have an expression. The philosophy has to have an expression, an external expression.
Yes.
If there's nothing behind that external expression, it's just like dance moves, essentially. There's nothing within it.
Yeah, but what I find is with in most companies I've looked at, so I've consulted before as an Agile consultant in companies, and I've worked in companies because I much prefer sort of living and breathing and owning the problem, like bleeding the colour of the company that I'm working for, and feeling the pain when things are right, and feeling it, you know, and being, you know, euphoric when it's right, and feeling absolutely atrociously upset when it's wrong. What I find in most of the companies that have done transformations in it is that they don't test whether some of those processes are working correctly. They put them in, and that they become much better at the sort of, or different ways of trying things, but they never test whether it really meets the actual original objective of it. So there's a thing about doing with, say, like the purpose of a stand-up is so that everybody gets context of all the things that are going on. How often do people, when they run a stand-up, do they actually ask someone, what do you think this person over here is doing? Did everyone get the context of what's going on here? Bet you most people up here would say they don't do that very often, if at all. So how do you know the thing's working? So I agree with you, but I'm saying I think people don't test some of those things. And in what we did at MYB and what I did in the previous company at Jetstar is we threw every single process out and said, we're starting with nothing. Open your machines up and start writing code. But I need to know what to do, okay? How should we find out what you need to do? We'll do this, and we built process in rather than applied something from a template and then try to make it better. And that's what most people do. They take a template and try and make those things better, but they never test whether those things work properly. And it's ugly. Like in the end, it's like it's a words and ceremony. You've got words and ceremony in your company rather than the true meaning behind the things. Like you want to do code reviews, that's why you do pair programming. So you don't have to do it at the very end where it has absolutely no value. You actually do it when you're writing the code. You don't have to do that. You can do it 100 different ways. Just XP's way of doing it is to pair program. So you can change the things you do if you know what you're trying to achieve. And what we strove to do is to basically look at it, strip everything away, and then go, what should we apply to this problem, and then build it out that way. Okay? Cool.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up there, folks. It is 5:30.
Beer time!
There's networking drinks and canapes upstairs back in the Visa Platinum Gallery. If you're not going to come to that, we'll see you at 9 o'clock for day 2 tomorrow.